Happy Wednesday, and what a Wednesday this is. We got a short work week. 4th of July is tomorrow. Hope you're having an amazing work week. Hope you're having a fantastic day. If you're wondering what you're watching, hey, this is it. This is the Imperfect Action live stream. You've stumbled into that. Who am I? I am Rob Fenstermaker. I'm a former corporate burnout survivor turned kingdom builder. You're a kingdom builder. What's a kingdom of? What's your kingdom all about? Hey, that's you living a life of significance. That's you living a life in which you are just focused on what it is you want to accomplish. And I love serving people in a powerful way to get them there. Hey, other than doing the Imperfect Action live stream, there's a couple other things I do. I host the virtual Friday whiskey hour, which is not this Friday, which is coming up next Friday. It's an opportunity to bring people together to close out the work week where we have some meaningful and insightful conversations. I also host the Iron Sharpens Iron community. Host this every other Tuesday, where again we do the same thing: just bring people together, create that community, have some amazing conversations. Yesterday we talked about the idea of freedom. With 4th of July, I don't think there's a better thing to talk about than freedom, because our freedom is so valuable. Our freedom is so important. And you know, the irony is freedom is never free, and we have to be willing to stand for that. And I think that's one thing we concurred on. But enough about that. It's time to move on to the Imperfect Action live stream today. And my special guest, Brad Warren. Brad is a land banking specialist. First time I met Brad, he told me, I sell dirt. I'm like, wait a minute, you sell dirt? This has got to be an amazing conversation. But he's a former business coach, now into real estate. He sells dirt. Brad, I know that's a real hook of a line. I sell dirt. So what fantastic things are going on in your world today?
Well, it's funny you talk about imperfect action. I just said that once in a networking group to introduce myself because I couldn't think of anything else to say. And everybody laughed. They all said, "What do you mean?" And so they were hooked. And it's kind of become my signature line now. People say, "Oh, we're gonna talk dirt. We're gonna talk dirty today," and just all these play on words. But what I got going on is actually really looking forward to this coming weekend. Our company trip to Europe is coming up.
You shared Saturday. That with me.
Yeah. I'll be on a riverboat for a river cruise. So very excited.
Yeah. Now you told me you're flying into Munich. Have you ever been to Munich before?
Yes. A long time ago.
Okay. Yeah. I was 20 years ago. I was in Munich. I actually was there for the Oktoberfest, the Munich Oktoberfest.
I was there in 1973, so I got you beat by a few years.
Oh, I was there in 2004. At that point in my stage of my life, I was living over in Belgium, and said, "Hey, let's just go to the Oktoberfest." So we did. We drove up to where Ramstein, jumped on a train, took that across to Munich, and experienced the Oktoberfest. It's one of those things, I don't know if I wouldn't say it was on my bucket list, but if you're in the area, go experience it. I don't know if it's worth getting on a plane just to go experience it. But we were there on opening day, and I've never seen more drunk Germans in my life than on opening day of the Munich Oktoberfest.
Yep.
And we were there when the gates opened, and they were already drunk. I'm like, good heavens, they were pre-gaming this one here.
I actually absconded with 3 of the mugs. I put on 3 separate days. I put them in the sleeve of my jacket and then hung it over my arm and walked out. 2 of them, I think 2 of them made it home unbroken. And since then, I think one's broken again. So I still have one, but this is like from 1973, big giant Stein. So
it always, I always hear
fun time.
Yeah, I'd always hear you go to experience the beer tents. I wouldn't call these tents. I mean, they're bigger than a football field.
Yeah, right.
And it always amazed me the Fraulines that are bringing out the beer, and they got like 6 mugs to a hand. You're like,
right.
They got this down to a science here.
Yep. They do.
but enough about drunk Germans. Enough of that. But no, that sounds like an amazing trip. Sounds like an amazing opportunity. How long were you be there?
We leave on Saturday the 6th. We arrive obviously the next day because time zone change and all that.
Mm-hmm.
We spend one night in Bucharest and then get on the boat on Monday. So that's the 6th, Monday the 8th. And we wind up in Budapest, Hungary at the end on the 15th. So it's a 7-day, 8-night, 7-day cruise.
That sounds like a great time. Sounds like
Yeah,
a great time.
we're very excited.
River tours are. I know the river tours are very popular in Europe. I've always wanted to experience one, but you're doing it, so it sounds great.
And
I'm selling dirt. You're just kind of tell you're selling dirt. You're going with a company that sells dirt. So, touch on that. You're not literally selling dirt, but you're selling dirt.
Well, actually, literally, I am, but it's not dirt that you would just pick up and carry home. So I'm what's called a land banking specialist. What I do is I sell vacant land to patient investors who buy and hold, and it's very important, the hold part. This is not a get rich quick scheme. This is not overnight success. This is not cash flow. Our average hold period, we tell people 7 to 10 years. So you got to be prepared for a longer hold, but you get very high returns because your exit strategy is built in at the start, which is to sell that vacant land to a developer, somebody who is going to consolidate your acre or your 5 acres with a bunch of other acres to build 500 homes or 1,000-acre solar farm or a shopping center. And they need all these small parcels and they pool them together. It's called agglomeration or consolidation. And now they have a large parcel so they can build whatever project it is that they want.
Okay. So is this raw land or is this maybe land where a factory had been and they closed it down and just done nothing with it? Or
nope. Totally raw. I mean, you've got some cacti, maybe some sagebrush growing, because most of our sales are in, it's called the Antelope Valley in Southern California. It's the high desert. It's about 2,000, 2,200 feet elevation. So the dirt is not conducive to actual farming, but there are some cacti growing, sagebrush, and some small shrubs and things like that. But it's just vacant land, which is kind of nice because when it's assessed, you know, when ownership changes hands, the land is reassessed at the new sales price compared to the old sales price. But because of Proposition 13 in California, it keeps that assessed value very low because there's nothing there. So the assessor says it's empty land. There's no buildings. I'm not going to even assess it at the full value. I'm only going to do about half. So your holding costs for property taxes while you're waiting that 7 to 10 years are extremely, extremely low. $50, $100, maybe $200, $300 a year, which is nice. So you're not putting a lot more money out of your pocket while you're waiting for that developer to come along.
So what you mentioned Proposition 13. What exactly is Proposition 13?
Okay. So in 1978, I was actually out here in California then, and I got to vote. And it was retroactive to 1976. What it does is when real estate changes hands, so this is a home, a shopping center, a commercial building, whenever real estate changes hands, usually the sales price is higher. And so the tax assessor comes in and now assesses the tax at that higher price. Well, Prop 13, what it did was it limited the amount that the assessor could assess to 1.3%. Okay. So that's a mess. So let's just take $100,000 property. So you buy land from our company. It's $100,000 exactly. And you will pay no more than $1,300 per year. However, like I said, because there's nothing there, the assessor never assesses it at the full 1.3%. Maybe it's 500. All right. So now you pay $500 the first year. Prop 13 also limits the yearly increase to no more than 2%. Well, 2% of 500 is $10. So your second year is 510. And then it's 520 and 40 cents or something like that. So incrementally, the increase is very, very low. So it doesn't take a lot more money out of your pocket other than your initial purchase price and, of course, closing costs.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I live in Florida. They have something similar in Florida. They call it the Homestead Act.
Yeah.
And the valuation is based upon that original purchase price. So when everybody kind of started moving to Florida a few years back, and we're buying homes with at inflated prices, they are starting at a different level than a lot of people that have been here for 15, 20 years.
Yep.
And yes, the assessor can only raise it incrementally each year. They just can't come in and say, well, that house next to you just sold for $750,000. I don't care that you bought it for $200,000 25 years ago. We're going, there's reins on what they can do. So yes.
We love Prop 13. We love it. We love it out here in California.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. So as you started it, I mean, what really got you started into this, or how did you kind of fall into this, or what was the journey that got you where you're at?
Well, the easiest way to tell a story, I do a quarterly net worth statement. I've been doing it since March of 1989, the year that my wife and I were engaged to get married. We were going to get married in August. So I thought, all right, let's see where we're at. We had some books and we had a little bit of furniture, a car. So I started doing a net worth statement, and I did one every quarter since then. And on December 31st, 2011, I looked at the numbers and I had like a little epiphany, a little jolt. I realized that my wife could retire by herself with her Oracle 401k money that she had socked away. Together, we could retire with my little measly amount that I had saved and her big chunk. But by myself, if I was a single guy at that point and I had to retire in the next couple of years, I did not have enough money to retire. I'd have to keep working.
Yeah.
And that was a little bit sobering, to say the least, Rob.
Yeah.
So I called Marcella Silva, my land banker. I knew her from a networking group. I said, come on over to the house. This was now January of 2012. She does her presentation at the kitchen table, just like a regular real estate agent would do with a laptop. And at the end, my wife says, no, thank you. I don't want to buy land. I don't understand it that well. I like my 401k and my mutual funds. And she walked out of the room. And I said, Marcella, get me a property, because I've got some money. And the only way I'm going to make that grow dramatically in the next few years is by buying land. So I got my first property in 2012, one in 2013, one in 2014. Then in 2015, my wife comes to hear Marcella speak again. Now, remember, this is like 3 years later. Okay. And I said, why do you want to go? She said, well, I've been watching you. You bought 3 properties. You go to the annual meeting down in Southern California. You have dirt in these little bags that you say dirt is gold, and you brought those bags home. And maybe I missed something, and you're getting these finder's fees. That's these referral fees. I think they're called finder's fees. You've made tens of thousands of dollars sending business to Marcella. Maybe I missed something, but I'm not going to buy, Rob. That's what she said in the car the whole way there. But I'm not going to buy any land. I just want to see if I missed something. Well, long story, very short. We get to the hotel. We watch the presentation. She pulls out her checkbook. Unbeknownst to me, I didn't even know she had her checkbook with her. She buys 2 out of the 4 properties that they presented at the hotel. Okay. And then in the car on the way home, I thought you weren't going to buy. Shut up, Brad. Drive the car. I get it now. So that was number 4 and 5. We've bought six more. We now own 11 properties. And then I actually transitioned in 2018, left my coaching career and joined Marcella's team, got my real estate license. Now I sell the dirt. I don't refer the business to her. I keep the people that I meet as my clients.
So when you buy these original plots, I mean, how big a plot is it? Is it just a couple acres, or is it bigger?
Minimum size is an acre. That's the smallest that we sell. And I've sold a few that were 10 acres. Marcella sold a few 30s and 40s. I know of one that was as big as 80. It just depends on, our company does a whole bunch of research, finds the land, and however we buy it, if we buy it as 5 acres, we sell it. We don't break it up. So we get whatever we can get. And then we sell it to our investors. Of course, we make a little profit on the sale, but then the
Correct.
investor is the one that waits the longer time period to get the really big returns.
So your primary client is actually, as far as actually purchasing this land to get, the ROI, would be a developer, a land developer, I'm assuming.
No. My clients are investors. You,
What
my neighbor.
what I'm saying, right? But what I'm saying is the ROI you get is when that land is officially sold, correct? So when someone has invested their money,
After you invest and buy it, you get a fee simple deed in the state of California. You get title insurance. You can prove it's your land. The profit is made for you when you sell that land to the developer, a home builder,
developer,
KB
okay,
Homes,
okay,
Lennar,
yeah, yeah,
DJ Horton, whoever, or you sell it. Now, a lot of our sales, I'd say the vast majority, are to energy companies who are building the solar farms.
yeah,
So you sell your
okay,
2 acres, your 5 acres, they consolidate it into 1,000 acres of just row after row after row of solar panels, and you
yeah.
make a lot of money. Some of our clients are even getting lease offers, 35-year lease offers. They're
Wow,
rare,
okay,
but they're
yeah,
ridiculous.
yeah.
They're, ridiculous.
So could someone say, "Hey, I just bought these 2 acres. I'm tired of living in the city. I want to get off the grid. I'm going to go build my little fiefdom out here in the middle of the desert and to go off the grid." Is that possible for somebody to do that?
If it was zone residential,
Okay,
but it's land that's in the middle of nothing. There's no
okay,
roads. There's no sewer lateral. There's no electricity. It's just dirt. Now, if you've got several
yeah,
$1,000,000 and you want to build the street for the benefit of the city, I'm sure they'll be quite happy to have you do that. Then you'd have to build a road into your piece of land. No, that's not what you do. You don't. That's why we're very, very, very clear up front, Rob, to make sure
yeah,
that people understand this is a longer term buy and hold, set it and forget it
mhm,
real estate investing strategy. You don't put up a for sale sign. You don't get bored. You don't. The biggest what's the word I'm looking for? The biggest hazard in land banking is you, the investor, is getting bored and saying, I got to
yeah.
get rid of it. Or I
Just
had
want to
one
get rid of
client.
it and sell. Okay,
Yeah, and then you're selling it for no profit because no one's going to buy it yet. It hasn't matured.
right,
It hasn't ripened
yeah,
like a fine wine. I had one client, they called me up after 2 years and they said, "Brad, I got to sell my land." I said, "What?" "Our daughter's going to more expensive college." I said, "But I asked you if you had money set aside." "Well, we did for the college she was going to go to. Now she's going to a private one and it's like 100,000 a year." So we figured out a way for them to sell it, but they sold it for exactly the amount that they paid. So
okay,
they made no money. In fact, they had to pay closing costs. So they lost a little bit of money. That's not a good idea.
yeah,
You don't want to do that. You want to hold that land. So most of my clients use IRAs, a self-directed IRA retirement account where they can't
yeah,
take the money out until they're 59 and a half anyway. So
right.
for many of them, it's going to sit for 20 years.
So somebody holds that land, so they're responsible for that land, taxes and everything associated with that land. There's no, they're not hiring a company to oversee that land. It's up
There's
to them to do what they want to do with this land, to
Yeah,
sell
there's
it when they're
nothing to
ready to
do.
sell.
There's nothing to
Yeah,
do except pay the tax, and that's the
pay the
only
tax.
responsibility. There's no other fees other than the property tax, and again, it's held very low because of Prop 13. And then you just wait. You literally do nothing. I
Yeah,
had one client. He called me up after 2 years. He says, "Brad, what's going on with my land?" I said, "Well, I'll just call him Joe." I said, "Joe, do you get on the free Tuesday night webinars to get updated on what's happening where you invest?" "Oh, no."
yeah,
"Well, if you had been doing that, you'd know how your land is doing. It rained last night. Your land is wet. Tomorrow it'll be dry. That's how your land is doing." And he kind of chuckled and he said, All right. So I guess I should just wait." I said, "Yeah, that's what we told you.
yeah,
You're 2 years in.
yeah,
7 to 10 years is still a long way off."
yeah,
Like a year later, he sends me a selfie with him and his wife, and in the background is this solar farm. And I called him up. I said, "Joe, what's that?" He says, "Oh, that's across the street from my property. They just got done building this giant solar farm. I now understand that all I got to do is wait until they come across the street because they're going to want my land to build. Thank you very much. I'll let you know when I get my offer. By the way, we offer free negotiation coaching. So when he gets his first offer, he doesn't negotiate. He calls me and I get information from the company about what's going on in that area so we can help him negotiate to get what we like to say is 3 to 7x return, 3 to 7 times the investment.
Now, is there a such thing in California as eminent domain? Because I know when I lived in Ohio, they had this eminent domain.
I believe it's
yeah,
it's the entire United States, but I'm not an attorney, so don't quote me on that. But I know in several states there is such a thing as eminent domain, where the city can come in and take your land away, but they got to. There's a lot of legal.
They got to give you fair. They got to give you fair market value.
Market value.
Are they really? Right. They really assessing what the fair market value is.
Yeah.
So let's say I'm an outdoorsman and I want to buy 10 acres because I want to. I want someplace to go and I want some hunting grounds. I love to hunt. Is that something somebody could do as well?
Well, if you want to hunt salamanders or a turtle.
Okay. All right. So this is okay. All right.
This is vacant land. There's no trees.
Okay.
There's no wildlife except maybe a salamander or a turtle. But usually we don't sell the land in what's called an SEA. It's called a significant ecological area. That's where the red-legged salamander or the desert tortoise lives. That's federal. They are federally protected. They're on the endangered species list or whatever. So in an SEA, you don't want to buy land in that. And we know of a company which is now out of business, thank God, because they were crooks, but they were selling land in SEAs to uneducated investors. And those uneducated investors then called our company and said, "Hi, can you help me?" Well, what do you need help with? "Oh, I bought land." "Well, tell me the address and I'll look it up." And they would, and I'd pull up the map and I'd say, "Do you know you're inside an SEA?" And they'd go, "What's that?" "Well, it's a significant ecological area. And in that one, there happens to be a desert tortoise, which is protected by the United States government. You cannot develop that land." "Well, they lied to me." "Well, sorry, you got a nice chunk of dirt, but you can't do diddly squat with it." Yeah. So that's part of our research, is to make sure we're never ever selling that land, that kind of land, to somebody. That would be, unethical.
Yeah. Yeah, because down here in Florida, it's very similar. I mean, there's some
they sell swamp
species that but there's some endangered species. Yeah, there's some endangered species in some of these areas, and you got to protect them. I'm all for that. I'm all for being a conservationist because those animals are there for a reason. Those animals are why people come down to a place like Florida.
Exactly.
You want to be able to see them. So is it? I'm kind of is this a syndication? And you guys are kind of describing this. Is this a syndication, or how exactly does the process work?
That's a great question. So my understanding of syndications from my real estate background and past investing is they pool people's money together. So, and usually there's like a $25,000 or $50,000 or $100,000 minimum. So they'll get, just so I can do the math easy, they'll get 10 people to each put in $100,000, and then they go buy something for $1 million. Or that's enough money for the down payment on maybe a $3 million building or a $4 million building. That's a syndication. And then each of those people own 1/10 of that building. With us, you either buy it outright yourself, or you and a spouse or a partner can do that. But you are allowed, in the state of California, you are allowed to invest in land with up to 4 non-family members or 8 immediate family members. And I believe, don't quote me on this, but it's husband, wife, parents, grandparents, children, grandchildren. I don't think aunts and uncles and cousins and second cousins once removed and all that, but there's some limitations. Don't quote me on it, but just to give you an idea. Right. So you can get some family members. Let's say our minimum is 25,000, and let's say there are 4 family members, each with 25, and they said, "Well, we don't want to buy 4 separate. We want to pool our 25 and buy a bigger $100,000 lot," which is a wise move because you can get more land at less per acre when you buy big. It's like going to Costco. You buy all that toilet paper in a giant roll, much cheaper per roll than buying just 3 at Safeway or Lucky or Albertsons or something like that. The same thing with land. If you can pool the money, you can buy a bigger property and lower the price per acre, which then makes your returns that much better when you go to sell. So yes, that it's not really a syndication. It's just the law allows you to pool your money and invest together.
How much pushback is there when people are trying to go in and develop this land? I know you always hear environmentalists don't want this land developed. You mentioned if there's endangered animals or endangered plants or that type of stuff, I get it. But if it's just land that's out there and you have some developer that wants to create a plot of 500 homes because the local economy supports that, what kind of pushback can there be from environmentalists in the area?
That is a great question. So there's something called the 10 growth factors, and your viewers can see this is a map of California behind me. This white circle is a 60-mile radius around downtown LA. We only invest in that circle and mostly in the periphery. And you may say, well, why there? Well, there's something called the 10 growth factors. We have a research and acquisition department, and they're looking at areas where there are 10 economic trends all occurring at the same time. So job growth, infrastructure growth, population growth, adequate water supply, access to rail, air, and roads, access to a port, and business-friendly city government. Every one of the areas where we invest, the city council and the mayor of those towns are very pro-business. So pushback doesn't exist. Nobody is stopping the development because everybody that lives there says, yeah, we want more people. We get more tax dollars. We can expand the schools. We can build better hospitals. And so the areas where we're investing are are conducive to growth. And in some it's astronomical, and some it's a little slower. That's why we say 7 to 10 years. It's not like overnight, but you're looking for that. I'll give you one quick example. Business-friendly city government and infrastructure combined. Lancaster and Palmdale, the 2 cities that we invest in the most. Several years ago, they took $180 million of city money to widen the off-ramps on the main freeway that runs right through the Antelope Valley. It's Highway 14. Now you got to ask yourself, why would the city spend $180 million of taxpayer money to widen the off-ramps unless they knew something was happening at those, interchanges? And of course, we started to look for land all around there because what are they going to build? The gas station on the 4 corners with a little mini mart and maybe houses nearby so you can get onto the freeway quickly and not have a long commute. Maybe a shopping center so they can have a big sign on the freeway. Exit here to get your sneakers and your gear for the winter and blah, blah, blah. So you follow the money. And when you have a business-friendly city government and infrastructure growth, something's going on. So that's why we don't worry about eminent domain. We don't worry about environmentalists coming forward. They do all the impacts reports and all that, but all of the people living in this area, they want growth. There's no NIMBY, not in my backyard, not where we invest. They want it.
They
want growth.
They want it. So when you go into the company originally goes in to purchase this land, is this somebody privately owned, or is this state-owned land, or who actually initially owns this land for your company comes in and purchases it?
Great question. I asked the CEO that once, and he kind of smirked and laughed a little bit. And he says, "Divorcing couples." I said, "What? What do you mean?" He said, "A lot of the land that we find comes from divorcing couples because in California, it's a community property state. So Sally and Bob inherited 3 acres from grandma that she bought 20 years ago for $4,000 or $3,000. And the judge, because it's a community property state, says one or the other of you either has to give half that money and buy the other one out, or you have to sell. Well, they're already fighting and divorcing. They don't want to buy out the other because they've had the land in the family for 20 years. Nothing's happened. So they sell it to us for very, very low cost. We will only buy it, of course, if it meets our 16-point comprehensive analysis checklist. We have a big, long checklist. Won't go into it now, but there's 16 things that we look at on every piece of land. If we don't get 16 yes check marks, we just pass. We buy one out of every 30 that we look at. So in this case, divorcing couple, we see that it does meet our criteria. We would love to get it. So maybe we give them, and I'm making the numbers up, maybe we offer them $4,000 or $5,000 for their $3,000 property. So, they're going to make a little money, and they go in a heartbeat, they sell it. But we know that land is worth way more if the person is willing to wait just a few more years, because that development, it wasn't there 20 years ago when grandma bought it, but it's coming now.
So I decide I want to go ahead and invest. I think you said earlier the minimum investment is 25,000. I think you threw the figure 25. That's minimum investment. Okay,
25,000 is minimum. Correct.
So is this cash purchase, or am I able to finance this type of purchase, or how's the purchase really handled?
I believe there's a list that has 10 different ways that you can do it. Most people will use cash. They'll use a retirement fund of some kind. It has to be what's called a self-directed IRA versus just a regular IRA. And there's rules about that. And again, you talk to your CPA about this to make sure you're saving the most on your taxes in the long run. Self-directed Roth IRA is another option. You can borrow from life insurance and buy the land outright and then pay yourself back. We don't recommend that, but some people could do that. You can obviously team up with other people. There's also something called a 1031 exchange. I don't know if your listeners and viewers are familiar with that. Maybe you are. No?
Yeah.
Okay. Again, I'm not an attorney. I'm not a CPA. I'm going to do this real fast. But the tax code section 1031 allows a person who owns real estate to sell it and defer, not avoid completely, but defer paying your federal capital gains tax to a future date. So you buy, let's say you bought a single family residence for $100,000. You've rented it out for 2 years, and now you sell it for $300,000 and you want to buy a duplex. Well, you've had a $200,000 capital gain. Normally you would pay Uncle Sam 10%, 15%, 20%, whatever it is. By buying the duplex in a 1031 exchange, and there's a whole bunch of rules about that, you now buy the $300,000 duplex and you don't pay Uncle Sam a penny. And now you own a duplex valued at $300,000. Now your next move is a quadplex at $800,000. That $500,000 gain, still you don't pay. You only pay at the very, very end. Let's say you now own, you've been 1031 exchanging it for 20 years. And now you own an apartment building with 50 doors and you're making $10,000 a month in cash flow. And you say, I'm never selling. I'm just going to keep. And so you've never paid Uncle Sam. But 20 years later, you've died. Your kids now inherit that building. And they say, you know what? We're sick of tenants, toilets, and termites. We don't want to keep collecting rent. I don't care about the $10,000 a month cash flow. They sell the apartment for $20 million.
Yeah.
Now they owe from $100,000 to $20 million on that gain. They pay Uncle Sam. So they pay Uncle Sam $3-4 million. And they got 16 million left over. They're very happy.
Not bad work if you can get it. So
yeah. So those are some potential scenarios with the 1031. So lots of different ways that you can purchase the land. Finance, we don't want people to finance because then you're paying finance costs for all those years that you're holding. And it raises your overall investment and doesn't make your return look as nice.
So what's the average length of time that somebody usually holds on to this land before somebody comes in and wants to purchase it?
I'm glad you said average. We tell people 7 to 10 years. And that's based on people that we know. Not everybody tells us when they sell. I heard this one story. The COO of the company was sharing this story. His wife comes home from the hairdresser, says, honey, did you know that client yada yada sold their land for 10 times what they paid? And the CEO, no, they never called me. They never let me know. That's how he found out. His wife heard at the hairdressers from the client that the client had sold and got like a 10x return, and the COO is just hearing about it that way. So only based on people that we know what they bought, when they bought. We're talking now about the when. So they bought it on this date, they sold it on this date. Based on that, from what we know, the average is 7 to 10 years. I have countless examples of people that sold sooner, and I know of people that have sold later. It just depends on how big a return you want. The longer you hold it, usually the more valuable the land becomes, because eventually somebody needs that land to build something.
And then there would be a deed with my name saying I own this plot of land at these, whatever, this longitude, latitude, however it's defined.
Yeah, it's got what's called the assessor parcel number, and it also has the legal description in the southwest quarter, northwest quarter, northeast half, left side, and it helps you locate it on something called a plat map. But yes, you get a fee simple deed from the state of California. By the way, we pay for title insurance. That's included in the purchase price. It's already built in there, so it's not an extra $700, $800, $900 to go buy title insurance. And that way, it's your land. They've gone back as far as they can go to figure out, that every transaction was legal, and you have the legal right to that property.
Okay. So I'm an investor. I invested with you, and I'm letting that land sit there, and all of a sudden, some developer comes knocking on my door, said, "Hey, we want your land." What do you do how do you help me in that situation?
I'll give you a real example. Married couple, they own 10 properties. Valor actually gets a letter because Valor is listed on the a point of contact, because a lot of times we don't want our clients to either not get the mail or discard it or lose it. So a lot of times it goes to Valor. So Valor gets this letter. They call up me and Marcella, because we're teammates and this is our client. And they say, Brad and Marcella, here is an offer. It was a handwritten offer on a piece of paper, not official stationery. We thought it was a scam. And they said, well, we don't know. We got the letter. We're forwarding it to you. Call your client, get on a 4-way conversation. So husband, wife, me, and Marcella, we get on a Zoom. They have a copy of the letter because we emailed it to. And they said, is this legitimate? And we said, well, yeah, we actually looked up the company. It took a little while to find them, but they're based in Texas. They are an energy company. We have every reason to believe this is a legitimate offer so far. And they say, okay, well, let's look at it. The offer was, and they didn't even put in the parcel number. So they own 10 properties. We didn't even know which property they were talking about. But they said, we would like to lease 30 acres of your land for $3,500 per year for 35 years. Okay, let's do the math. 3,500 times 30 acres is $105,000 per year for 35 years. I can do the math in my head. That's over $3.5 million. Oh, our clients didn't know about the escalation clause. They said, well, what's that? Well, we advise you. Well, I can't use the word advise. That's a legal term. And then it's like I'm giving legal advice and I could lose my real estate license. We suggest that you put in what's called an escalation clause to keep up with inflation. And it's usually 2.5% to 3%. So they put in, let's say 3%. So the first year they make 105,000. The next year they're going to make 105,000 plus 3%, whatever that is, like another 3,000. So now they're getting 103,000. No, 105 plus 3. They're getting 108,000 the next year.
Right.
Now it's 3% of that. So every year it's climbing more and more. So it's well beyond $3.5 million. It's probably closer to $4 million. So we would give them this coaching, that's what we call it, negotiation coaching. We gave them several questions to go back to ask the energy company, and now they are responsible for negotiating. So they haven't heard back. They communicated. We don't think they've heard back yet. We're just waiting. But we told them, as soon as you hear back, do not reply. Get a hold of me and Marcella. We'll go through this again. So it's energy company, to them, to us, to the CEO, to us, to them, to the energy company. It's like four entities involved in the negotiation. And we get the CEO involved on every negotiation to help us. We don't try to do it on our own. Marcel and I consult with him to get his opinion. And then we give that opinion to our clients. And then it's up to, they could do it for less or more. They could ask for 5% escalation clause. It's their land. They can do whatever they want.
Do what they want. Do what they want. So go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was going to say that's a current negotiation. They own the land 2 years, and they're already involved in this potential lease. And we'll see where it goes. Hopefully at some point it'll be a case study that I can, with their permission, but not their names, I'll be able to give all of the numbers and how many back and forth it went. And I'll write it up as a case study to give people an example, because they're always asking me, well, do you have any examples? And yeah, I do. Now I'll have a whole
proof. Yes. There you go. Yeah, that's cool. Now, does your company try and maintain a certain amount of inventory in what you have in order to sell? Or
great question. That is, Rob, that's the first time anybody's phrased it like that. So yes, we actually call it inventory. And there's two divisions to our company. There's the holding company, the LLC, limited liability company. That's the one that buys the land and puts it in inventory. And then there's Valor Real Estate Services, Inc., which is where I am located under the broker. All of the salespeople are under the broker on that side of the business. So yes, we have inventory. We will buy land with Valor money as frequently as we can that meets our 16-point comprehensive analysis and hold it. We hold it in inventory. And then when a client comes to me and says, hi, Brad, I want to buy a $60,000 solar property, I get a hold of Valor, and they look in inventory to see if we already own within 1 to 2,000. So 58 to 62,000, they will look to see if we already own one of those. And then they pull it out of inventory. No other salesperson gets to sell it. And then I can present that to my client for them and them exclusively.
Now, have you ever had developers come directly to Valor and just say, hey, we want to buy 500 acres? Does that ever happen?
The only time I heard of something like that happening is one of Marcella's clients had said, yes, I want to buy this property, and had not even sent in the down payment, the 3% deposit to hold the land. Valor got an offer from a developer on that land and told them, bye-bye, that land is already sold. You'll have to deal with the client. Now, it takes 21 days for the escrow to close. Well, plus a week to get the money in. But the client was like astounded. You mean you could have sold it for that much money, and yet you're selling it to me? And said, you bought it. We honor that. We're not a sleazy company. I'm sorry. It's your land. And as soon as you close, we're going to put you in touch with the developer and help you negotiate. By then, it'll probably be worth even more. Because when the developer comes, the developer always lowballs. Their first offer is always extremely, extremely low. And you don't even respond. We help you based on, I don't like to call them comps, but we look around at other parcels that are in the same area, similar size. Maybe other Valor clients have already gotten an offer. And so we can tell this, my client, I can say, well, we know 3 other Valor clients, and they got offers for 3,200, 3,300, and 3,100. So your 3,500 is very exceptionally good. I'm not telling them to go ahead and accept it. They might get it up to 37, but now they know, well, we're ahead of those other 3. We're doing pretty well. Okay, great. So that kind of insider information we can pass on, of course, without the names.
I'm going to assume I can live anywhere in the world and work with your company to purchase land.
Almost. I don't work with people from Yemen or Bangladesh or, any place where there's human trafficking, where there's money laundering concerns. Certain restrictions, but pretty much most countries that are nice countries that do allow its citizens to invest, and we know they're not laundering the money. Yes, though I have clients in Thailand, Canada, Mexico, Panama, and Paraguay. So international clients.
All right. And I can even live here in South Florida and buy land in California if that's what I choose to do.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Okay.
You want dirt? You want some dirt?
Want some dirt? Who wants some dirt?
Yeah, I got dirt.
Yes. Try. See. I go to a baseball game. Hey, I got some dirt here. Dirt.
Dirt for sale. Dirt for sale. Come on, get your dirt. Well, they used to joke about Florida a lot. They say, "Oh, if you believe that, I got some swampland in Florida. I'd love to sell you."
There's a lot of swampland down here. Yep. So there's a lot of swamp. Actually, I call this time of the year in Florida swamp ass weather, and there's a reason for that, because by the end of the day, your ass feels like a swamp.
Yeah, right. I've been to Florida in the middle of summer, and I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. You know what? It's funny because my wife and I, we moved from Ohio a little bit over 2 years ago. So it was about 2 weeks ago. It got really hot in the Midwest. Like, it was pushing 100 degrees. So we had family and friends that were texting us and calling us. Yeah, it's almost 100 degrees down here. It must be miserable down there in Florida. Well, that day they did that, I'm like, hey, it's 82 degrees and sunny out right now. So
that's right.
Sucks to be you. It's beautiful weather down here. So
yeah, it's just the humidity in Florida can sometimes be a little.
A
little bit.
It is the humidity and the bugs. You got to get used to humidity, and you got to get used to bugs. Bugs,
right?
Yeah. So you get up in the morning. I get up, like this morning. I got up a little bit after 5 o'clock and let the dog out, and it's already 80 degrees and 100% humidity. And you're walking from an air conditioned house outside. That humidity it's like a ball bat to the teeth. It just hits you.
Yep.
Goodness.
Been there, done that. That's why I like California. Heat wave, we're having a heat wave right now. It's like 100 degrees today. And that's very unusual. But there's 3% humidity or something. So it's very dry. And it's
not
too bad.
You say that. I've only been to Las Vegas once in my life, and that would have been in August of 2019. I mean, I've flown through the airport, but it'd actually be in Las Vegas. So my wife, she was a keynote speaker at an event, and so they comped her a room. She's like, "You want to go?" I'm like, "Sure, I'll go to Las Vegas." I had nothing going on. It was just like a quick in and out 3-night trip.
Yep.
And everybody's, it's dry heat here. This is dry heat. It's a dry heat. What? The one day in particular, it was 115 degrees. And I looked at my weather app and it said 8% humidity. 115 degrees is 115 degrees. I don't care where you're at.
Hot. I don't care what
115 degrees, and it's
You could fry an egg on your car hood.
Oh yeah, and I remember walking out of a show. It was at midnight. We walked out of a show, and it was still 100 degrees. I'm like, good heavens! I don't see how you can live in this. I don't see how you can do it.
Well, they don't go outside. They go from air conditioned car to air conditioned house to air conditioned car to air conditioned office building, and 30 feet from the parking lot to the office building. That's all that it is. And I like going to Vegas to visit, but I would never live there either.
Oh,
sorry, Vegas people.
Wouldn't interest me. Wouldn't interest me at all. Wouldn't interest me. But I've also heard. I remember I had friends that they had moved to South Texas, and they said that during the dead of the summer, you had to leave your windows cracked, because if you didn't leave your windows cracked and roll them up tight, it would get so hot inside it would just blow the windows out.
Yeah.
So,
all right.
Never experienced that in Florida, but hey, that's But you got to have a sunshade down here in Florida. That's a must.
That's a must,
and,
right?
There is a must, but there is something powerful about the sun, and I've read a lot about the power of sunlight, so it is very therapeutic. So, and I'm sure
we love
plenty
it.
Of yes, I love it too.
We love it because it produces electricity.
Yes,
most of the majority of our sales are actually land. There's 5 classifications of land, 5 zonings, and the least expensive one is called non-residential / agricultural, and we call it green energy or green real estate. Mm-hmm. All of the sales in that lower category eventually are going to energy companies to build solar farms.
Yeah. And you can do that. I mean, there's a lot of homes. I would probably say in the neighborhood we're in, I'd say 30% of the homes have solar panels on the roof, and they're primarily run off. You can do that in a place like Florida. You can do that in a place where you're selling your land.
Well,
Um,
funny that you bring that up. Lancaster is a net zero city, which means as a city, by the way, they have required for years all new buildings and homes have to have solar. Have to. It's not an option. They come with solar. Between all of the solar on all of the houses and buildings, and Lancaster owns its own solar farm, they produce more electricity than they use as a city. In other words, they're putting more electricity into the grid. There's excess energy. That is unheard of. It's the first city in the United States that is net zero as an entire.
There's a community close to probably about 30 miles south where we're at. It's called Babcock Ranch, and then the same thing. It's 100% solar. At night, they do have gas. They run off gas if electricity is needed. But yeah, it's 100% solar community. I'm like, very interesting. Very interesting.
Well, at night
you can do it. Yeah.
The other component that goes along with the solar farms are what are called a BESS, battery energy storage system. So on some of the acres, they built, and these batteries are like the size of a house.
Yeah.
And there's like maybe 10 or 15 of them. So all this extra excess electricity that they produce by day from the sun gets stored in the battery. And so at night, when the sun goes down, the solar farms stop producing electricity. They take the electricity from the batteries and use it that way. And it's just, it's unbelievable to actually go there and drive around and look at these solar farms. Sometimes they will stretch for miles, and you and 5 years ago it was all vacant land, and now it's just one after another after another. It's unbelievable.
I've seen some of them.
It's very fascinating.
I'm all for renewable energy sources, and I think that's the direction we're heading in. I'm all for that.
Yep, it is.
So, well, hey, we are kind of coming up on it here. It's been a great conversation. I've really enjoyed this. Do you have any parting wisdom before we call this one a day?
We have a couple of taglines at our company. We say, invest in land because they're not making any more of it. And the other one is, the best investment on Earth is Earth. Oh, they are making more land. The volcanoes in Hawaii, but I don't think you want to live on that volcanic rock, and it's still steamy. No. But I diversify. Don't put all your money into one thing, no matter what it is. Crypto, mutual funds, stocks, bonds, single family residence, strip mall, whatever. Diversify. Have a nice balanced portfolio with a little bit here, a little bit there, or a lot here, a lot there, a lot there, depending on how big your portfolio is. And that's why I love chatting with people and just making sure that it's appropriate, that they understand the time frame. They understand that they're not going to do anything. If they want to be an active investor and manage stuff, go buy a single family residence and have tenants, toilets, and termites. Okay. But if you just want to invest, set it and forget it, do nothing except reap very high returns, come chat with me. You see on the screen there. And in case you're listening in your car or something, brad@bradwarren.com is the best way to get a hold of me.
Perfect. Well, I appreciate it, Brad. I appreciate the opportunity to have this conversation with you. I learned something new, and that's the thing that's most important to me. I got to learn something new every day. I've certainly learned something new. Something else next Friday, the Virtual Friday Whiskey Hour, 5:00 Eastern Time. We go live with this. Virtual doors open at 4:50. Stop on by, enjoy the conversation. I have no idea what we'll talk about, but I'm sure we'll talk about something exciting. Also, the Iron Sharpens Iron community. Hey, again, it's another opportunity to bring people together and have that conversation. But Brad, this has been a great opportunity to learn a lot more than what I knew before we started this conversation. I appreciate your knowledge on this and your insights. Let's have a great 4th of July. Let's make this because 4th of July. I want to say this: 4th of July is one of my favorite holidays. I go back to back in the day when I was a child. I remember my Uncle Red, who drove a tank in the World War II in Europe. The highlight of every 4th of July, because he would always make a bomb that he would bring to the 4th of July party and set it off. I would always remember those. So that was the highlight of my 4th of July.
Well, stay safe. Speaking of 4th of July, just stay safe. honor those that gave the ultimate sacrifice so that we could be free.
Absolutely.
And thank you again. Thanks to all your listeners for listening in and watching. And Rob, thank you very much for having me on the show.
Well, thank you, Brad.
Had a great time.
I had a great conversation too. It was a great time. So people, let's make this a great day. Have a great holiday. Peace out.